What's up? I'm gonna be doing a reaction video of Turkey Tom's Ezra Miller's child side of serial criminal. I really don't know much about Ezra Miller, so I'm going in kind of blind. I've heard Ezra Miller is crazy, obviously, but I don't know much outside of that. So let's see.
On June 7th, 2022, Chase Iron Eyes and his wife, Sarah Jumping Eagle, obtained a protection order against 29-year-old actor Ezra Miller on behalf of their child.
They had wait, he was involved with a child? Hold on, what? This is already the most bonkers shit ever.
Tokata Iron Eyes for allegations of grooming and abuse. Actually serving the order would be another matter entirely. Ezra was on the run, which meant that 18-year-old Tokata was too. The two were in a whirlwind of a relationship, and Miller wasn't going to let Iron Eyes out of their sights. The pair allegedly went from the actor's 96-acre farm in Vermont, a property said to be loaded up with all manner of
Holy shit, he took this kid. Hold on.
to Hawaii for a purported crime spree in nightclubs across the island,
What?
and finally made it to
Los kid to do all these crazy ass things all over the motherfucker.
Angeles when they were finished. As the police tried to catch up, Tokata's parents said they watched their
Dude, is this the kid?
child go from a precocious activist and public speaker to an incoherent mess. To
Wow, what the fuck?
them, Ezra was at the center of it all. They had heard that Miller controlled Tokata's coming and going, eating and sleeping, and felt entitled to speak on her behalf. Chase and Sarah said they noticed
Oh my goodness, with a child, bro?
bruises. There were alleged instances of drugging. The people around them claimed to have witnessed physical abuse, and according to the family's accounts of their own interactions with Ezra, these started everything from claiming they were the second coming of Christ to assaulting Sarah.
What is this guy, the second Christian? What the fuck? Why does everyone believe they're Jesus Christ? Like, why is that a thing?
They weren't the only ones with concerns. In fact, Ezra had already been a subject of media scrutiny for 2 years by that point, subject to accusations of running a cult in Iceland to abusing a slew of romantic partners.
How do you do all of these things? Like, that's unhinged as fuck.
What in the world is going on with Ezra Miller? And why? Better yet, where did all of this begin? As a professional actor, Ezra Miller's story naturally begins with their debut in film. At just 15 years old, Miller secured a role in the indie movie After School, and the gig was anything but casual. They played a high school sophomore with a preoccupation with violence against women, who films the death of 2 female classmates.
So this is like foreshadowing to real life. What the fuck?
You'd expect an older person to be casted for the role, but the director seemed to think that Ezra was beyond their years and ready for the job, according to an interview with New York Magazine. Director Antonio Campos said, "I could just tell he was special. He was a lot smarter than other teen actors. They bonded over their love of A Clockwork Orange, and more sensitive. He wasn't afraid to make a fool of himself. He also..."
Oh, this is great foreshadowing. He wasn't afraid to make a fool about himself. I'm sure he wasn't. People that don't like, there's a difference between not giving a fuck and just being completely unhinged.
wasn't a virgin. Campos had difficulty getting Miller to act awkwardly in the sex scene. He already smoked, too. From a young age, Ezra evidently was already being exposed to and involved in fairly mature situations, both in private life and in the industry, situations you'd expect to be reserved for adults or older teens. This trend of being ahead of the curve manifested in a particularly life-altering way for Ezra right after School came out. At 16, Miller would drop out.
Damn, at 16? I don't blame him. I mean, if I was a child star, I'd probably lose my mind too, like, holy shit.
Though not for poor academic performance. The budding actor was a well-performing student, but got the idea to ditch high school and pursue their passion full-time in 11th grade, after Ezra claimed that Ludwig Beethoven had visited them in a dream. If that sounds too whimsical to be true, well, that's basically the norm for Ezra. Their next feature in 2009 was equally odd, though more on the comical side of the spectrum, as Ezra played a kid with a secret fat in the movie City Island, which involved his family's 300-pound neighbor. Next year, Miller played the lead role in Beware the Gonzo as an unpopular Hunter S. Thompson-obsessed teen who starts an underground school newspaper to give a voice to outcasts. Movies with a markedly indie premise were their bread and butter. Art imitates life, because Ezra was just as precocious and unusual a teenager in real life as on the big screen, which was evident from their interviews at the time.
I have a tendency to be very opinionated and forthcoming with ideas, so in that sense.
But like many child actors, Ezra would continue being a little too precocious for comfort. This film premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, where it would be revealed that Ezra was romantically involved with Zoe Kravitz at the age of 17 while she was 21. While this is legal in New York, the general public wasn't too pleased when this bit of trivia cropped up again, especially
Oh, so he started out being the victim and then turned into making people his victim.
considering Zoe Kravitz's other exploits, such as her inappropriate comments about Jaden Smith when he was 14 years old and she was 24. Just Hollywood being Hollywood, I guess. Rest assured, we'll come back to this motif later. Ezra's next movie was We Need to Talk About Kevin, where the character was another psychopathic murderer, this time one who shot up his high school with a bow and arrow. Miller's tendency towards these edgy roles wasn't going unnoticed, and it was a point of discussion in interviews at the time.
Well, Kevin is played by the up-and-coming actor Ezra Miller. Earlier on, I went to meet him.
Well, Ezra, a very convincing performance as a psychopath. It's not the first time you've played those roles, is it?
Nope.
In the same interview, we also get to see
This guy just looks like he's full of himself with the fedora hat with the card on it. Like, what is he thinking?
Ezra's penchant for philosophizing and broaching abstract topics, while still only 18 years old.
Born, or do you think evil people are made?
I have a lot of problems with the notion of an evil person because I think people are naturally dualistic in their qualities. I mean, even more than dualistic. It's not a binary. There's a spectrum within every human being.
Let's talk about forgiveness then. Is anything forgivable, do you think?
Any act can be forgiven. I mean, because we can all on some level understand even the most horrid atrocities, or at least I can. I feel like everybody can or could if they really tried.
2011 would also see Ezra starring in Another Happy Day, again as a nihilistic and combative youth. Ezra's real breakout
So I didn't really know any of that shit. I guess he didn't really make it until The Flash.
role would be in 2012 as the openly gay character Patrick in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This year would also mark their first run-in with the law, which took place during shooting for the film. They were busted for marijuana possession, but due to a kindly magistrate and the fact that they were only 19, Ezra was cleared of the drug charge and was instead hit with 2 citations for disorderly conduct, which carried a penalty of $600. You could easily overlook this as Ezra having a bit of harmless fun, with the substance in question being perfectly legal in plenty of states nowadays, and the relative harmlessness of what they actually did. In Ezra's words, "I don't think there's any need to hide the fact that I smoke pot. It's a harmless herbal substance that increases sensory appreciation. It was the on-brand thing to do and say for a free spirit such as Miller, who at this point in their life had hit their hippie arc before even reaching their 20s. For example, they made a visit to Occupy Wall Street in 2011 and gave their thoughts on the state of affairs in the world. I, like the rest of my generation, have proceeded through the last decade of my life with hopelessness, truly feeling the profit motivation of this society will inevitably lead to economic despair, environmental ruin, and the loss of civil liberty." Miller also made sure to hit up Burning Man and travel to the North Pole to do climate activism.
But it's time for the Arctic Council to stop listening to the interests of politicians, of oil companies, and to start listening to the people who are concerned about this planet's future.
Throughout all of this, they even continued playing in their rock band called Sons of an Illustrious Father. However, after Ezra's role in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, they wouldn't fade back into obscurity. In 2014, Miller was cast as the Flash in the DC Cinematic Universe, and in 2015,
Yeah, that's the only way I've known him.
was in talks for a role in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The promise of true stardom was looming on the horizon. These were big budget movies. Throughout 2016, Ezra made appearances in Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad as the Flash, and starred as Credence in Fantastic Beasts. Rest assured though, Hollywood fame did anything but take the political wins out of Ezra's sails. They kept that same focus on social issues and ideals, even with a busier lifestyle, though it was almost like their speech was imbued with a new tinge of esotericism.
Permeating all culture is this dangerous element of seeing someone else as completely separate from yourself, losing awareness of how those people are different, but at the root always the same, and then demonizing and targeting other people. I feel that magic is the true operational mode of the world, and I think that these stories are so wonderful because we exist in this fantastical imagination of what magic could be, but then ultimately we're always brought back to the true magic that we all partake of, reminded again and again that the strongest magic, the highest magic is love. I think that is a truth that can be found.
Okay, as unhinged as I thought he was, that's not a bad take. But we'll see where that goes.
Through a lot of the wisdom traditions of the world, those people who do practice magic, I think would agree with J.K. Rowling, you know.
So if you had the chance with a wand to change something in this world, what
I destroy patriarchy.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I think that's at the root, you know. I think that the culture of violence against women is like deep in the root of the problems in our world.
The patriarchy?
Isn't this guy like known for violence against women? That's the funny part.
Violence against women? Oh, the impending irony. Now, I can't mention these Warner Bros. Franchise roles without talking about how lucrative they are. And there's nothing like a boost to the old net worth to improve your life, right? Well, as it turns out, money may have been the last thing Ezra Miller needed. In the following years, the star's public image would grow increasingly weirder, and it may or may not have had something to do with illicit substances.
To root! Yay!
Not all of their wacky hijinks would be as innocent as a toadette LARP. On one occasion, Miller randomly kissed a male fan after being encouraged by the crowd. Of course, this didn't turn into anything significant, and luckily for Ezra, the fan didn't seem to mind. And there was no room for something like this to taint Ezra's image, because they were about to become a media darling. Ezra Miller is the gender-bending, goat-delivering Hollywood star of the future. With their intense good looks and recurring roles in the Harry Potter and DC Comics universes, Ezra Miller seems primed for a familiar kind of Hollywood success. But it appears they also play in a genre-queer rock band, have gender-blind taste in clothes, and live not in Silver Lake, but on a farm in Vermont. Please tell us the next generation of movie stars is going to be more like this.
Why would you want more of Ezra Miller's?
They might be. This interview with GQ goes into Miller's manifold eccentricities, commenting on their peculiar choices compared with their peers. This attitude sets them apart from many of their peers. Most 26-year-old actors are currently racking up followers on Instagram, accepting Teen Choice Awards, or strolling in front of the paparazzi with whatever celebrity they're dating this week. Miller is logging hours as a midwife for a goat in Vermont. Ezra was soon to attract the paparazzi in a much different way, but I digress. It wasn't just GQ that showered praise on them, though. The Hollywood
He should have just stayed out of the limelight.
Reporter also did a positive piece, visiting Ezra at their farm in Vermont. Miller operates not at all like a typical rising Hollywood star. They have zero personal social media presence and have never even flirted with the idea of moving to LA. They would rather talk about the ravages of fossil fuels and the polyamorous community of friends and spiritual advisors milling about on the farm on the brisk day. Smoke wafting, than how they landed that DC tentpole role. They do have something to say about stardom. If you watch The World, the cults of celebrity and the fanatics of celebrities, that's what governs the world now, Miller explains between deep tokes. So you're a politician or you're whoever, you're just a celebrity with a fan club like me, you know? And we're all probably mentally ill. I watch television or the news and I'm like, oh, it's my people. We're all mentally ill together. Cool. Powerful men, they don't know how bad they want to submit to a woman, a feminine power, but they should. I advise them to do it immediately because they're screwing up the world. Miller hadn't stopped living an alternative lifestyle since we last got a peek into their personal affairs, and if anything, had only taken things a step further, from the realm of the political and vaguely philosophical to the explicitly religious, seeing as spiritual advisors were apparently visiting their farm. I can't say it's not a natural progression, what with Ezra blazing it around the clock. Ezra also did an interview with Playboy around the same time, and elaborated on their polyamorous lifestyle. Calling themselves a sexual being, they instead find companionship with a group of sexual partners they refer to as their polycule. Here we go. Here we go. A portmanteau of polyamorous molecule. I'm trying to find queer beings who understand me as a queer being off the bat, who I make almost a familial connection with, and I feel like I'm married to them 25 lifetimes ago from the moment we meet, they explain. Only time would tell if this arrangement would turn
Okay. That's really fucked. Like, where do you even start with that?
out as beneficial for all parties involved, or if the word polycule would end up being little more than an elegant euphemism for a harem of women under Ezra's control. And it certainly would tell. On a different note, Ezra would take these interviews as an opportunity to shed some light on their earlier experiences in the industry, though they weren't the ones you would hope for. They refer to pre-Time's Up Hollywood as a racist, sexist culture mess that we still sort of celebrate. And when I ask about their own experiences, they have a lot to say. I've survived abuse for sure in a lot of capacities, starting from a pretty young age. I've been in audition situations where sexuality was totally being leveraged. Ezra would go on to elaborate on an instance where a director and producer tried to ply them with alcohol for predatory purposes. They gave
Damn, man. See, and that's where I feel like a lot of it starts is because Hollywood has been a very sexual industry for like ever since the dawn of its creation. So I feel like that's what messes up a lot of these child actors like Ezra Miller. I mean, it feels like, you know, the epiphany that started it all.
me wine and I was underage. They were like, hey, want to be in our movie about gay revolution? And I was like, no, you guys are monsters. Miller then went on to praise the hashtag #MeToo movement and the changes that are occurring in the entertainment industry. It's a great age of being like, you know what? That stuff's unacceptable. And it's amazing for a lot of us to watch because like, we all knew it was unacceptable when we survived it. That's what Hollywood is. I thought we all knew we were sex workers. On a more lighthearted note, or perhaps not, we also found out that Ezra still keeps the bow from We Need to Talk About Kevin on their farm. If it were anyone else, this would be a neat piece of trivia. For the kind of person Ezra was allegedly about to become, perhaps not. 2019 was seemingly the beginning of the end, when, towards the end of the year, Miller's behavior went from eccentric to unsettling. A piece by Business Insider would report on strange anecdotes about Ezra's acting endeavors during that time. On the set of Asking for It, a feminist thriller, Miller often wore long robes, a cape, and a unicorn head despite scorching temperatures, crew members said. Many people on the set commented on Miller's pungent body odor, and one production staffer told Inside that Miller appeared mentally scattered. A few months
Damn, it's like, how do these people like keep their jobs in Hollywood after this? Like anywhere else you'd get a job, this would be unacceptable. I mean, at least that's what I think.
later, while filming the TV miniseries The Stand, Miller incessantly screeched, spit, and interrupted the director by screaming during filming. Kevin Armstrong, an extra on the show, said. He said that when he complained about Miller's behavior, the person in charge of extras told him that Miller was method acting because their character, Trash Can Man, was mentally unstable. But a former associate of Miller's said things got so bad that production called Miller's legal counsel and manager because people on the set were not feeling safe. Hot off of these supposed antics, in February 2020, Ezra wound up in London to shoot the third Fantastic Beasts
This dude has gone off the rockers real quick, and this is 15 minutes in out of 50.
movie.
Holy
But
shit.
filming was halted going into March because, I don't know, they just weren't feeling it. The vibe was wrong and everyone needed to go home and
Dude, why is like why do people see like totally mentally insane individuals as like amazing artists when they're just insane, but they keep them around anyway, regardless of the danger they are for everyone around them?
realign their chakras. It wasn't because of world-altering events or anything like that. Anyhow, Ezra decided to take some time off in Iceland of all places. This was a most unfortunate turn of events for the nation's residents, according to that same Business Insider investigation. Miller's presence was poorly received by some Icelanders, who said the actor was aggressive and admitted a putrid stench. The actor, who rarely changed out of the same loosely fitting bohemian clothing, strolled the frigid streets of Reykjavik barefoot, revealing long, pointy toenails and what looked like an infected gash on one foot, 3 people said. One person recalled seeing Miller walking around mumbling. Ezra was apparently goblin posting in the middle of the street. Safe to say, if this is true, Miller may have leveled up from inhaling that stinky green to more illicit.
Like, dude, what was he on? Like, you have all of the money in the world and you decide to just bum out in some other country and be a menace to their people?
Substances by this point. Behavior no doubt enabled by their newfound wealth, because I don't think they were method acting for the role of Gollum. Others interviewed attested to Ezra forming a makeshift cult of sorts during this time in Iceland, surrounded by quote-unquote spiritual advisors once again, which may have had something to do with their descent into madness. Miller reportedly hosted a slew of guests at an Airbnb for artistic and religious activities, while implying they themselves possessed paranormal abilities. One woman who visited the house recalled several mattresses spread out on the floor and compared it to a commune. She was struck by how enamored guests seemed to be with Miller, hanging on their every word and seemingly unfazed by Miller's mood swings. I felt like everyone was hypnotized, she said. Miller held court daily at the Airbnb. They often alluded to possessing supernatural powers, 2 people said, and instructed guests to participate in group meditations led by Jasper Youngbear.
Yeah, they weren't exaggerating about that cult shit.
Jasper Youngbear was one of these spiritual advisors.
This guy.
Ezra kept by their side, who we don't have much info on, apart from the fact that he's active in indigenous communities and was interviewed by Pharrell Williams. But back to the article. Nobody ever was allowed to disagree with them, recalled a young woman who said she had a brief sexual relationship with Miller in Iceland when she was 18. Their reality painted everybody else's reality. There was no room for anybody else's opinion or feelings. A 23-year-old woman who visited the house twice said she witnessed Miller fly into a rage when a group of friends tried to pick which song to play over the sound system. She said Miller swore and screamed at them to leave the house, which the actor referred to as a sanctuary.
Oh my goodness. It's not a big deal, guys. It's just like take turns. Like, holy shit. And these people are given millions of dollars.
They snapped from being a friendly host to this really angry person, she said.
Or was it the $1 million that turned them that way?
At another point, Miller ushered a woman and her friend into a room and confronted them about wanting to leave the house. "You don't like my hospitality," Miller told them, adding that they could read the pair's minds, the woman said. She remembers feeling intimidated and trapped. The woman eventually sneaked a text to a family member asking them to pick her up. She said that leaving the house felt like making an escape. "I was a bit traumatized for a while," she said. "It was one of the weirdest days I've ever experienced." The Airbnb situation and Ezra's behavior on
Why is he looking more and more like Neo from the Matrix?
the whole quietly continued under wraps until April 1st, 2020, when they would be filmed choking a fan.
Learn it? Did you want to fight? Is that the deal? Whoa, bro.
Now, if you think this video speaks for itself,
Bro, I would beat the fuck out of Ezra Miller if I saw that shit in front of my own eyes. Hell nah. And that dude just sitting there recording it, I really hope something was done about
and this is a closed case, you just don't know how far stands will go. People online use the initial lack of context for the clip to shrug the whole incident off, even though people's reaction in the clip clearly shows it wasn't all in good fun. Fun fact, the cops were never called for this. I believe they were just play fighting. You're so quick to read into a short video when you lack the full context.
What? People really put a spin and do all sorts of mental gymnastics to make anything okay, it seems like. Like nowadays you can just twist anything into whatever way you want people to view it as, I guess. But that's not how reality works.
Ezra was being harassed. They wanted a reaction and they got it. Self-defense and the like. No charges were being brought against Ezra either. And ladies and gentlemen, a contender for the most sus comment of the year, "I wish that was me." And while it's true that the woman in question didn't initially call the police or press charges, she did later come forward with her story, which was published by Variety. According to 3 sources, the woman had been speaking to Miller at a bar prior to the quarrel. She said she inquired about the actor's feet, visible in flip-flops, after noticing some wounds, which Miller explained were battle scars from a fight. After discussing how they got them, she began to walk away but turned around and joked, "But just so you know, I could take you in a fight." And the woman told them to meet her in the smoking area in 2 minutes. I think it's just fun and games, but then it wasn't. All of a sudden, they're on top of me, choking me, still screaming.
Damn, man. It's like, how far, and then nobody does anything about it?
In my face if I want to fight. 2 guy friends of mine are actually holding Miller back as they're screaming. "This is what you wanted. This is what you wanted." The woman said Ezra spat in her friend's face and grabbed the owner of the bar by the neck when he tried to kick them out. The bar owner also claims that on one occasion, he had to break up a fight between a patron and Miller, who had put the man in a chokehold and slapped him. After this disturbing slew of allegations, Warner Bros.
This man is the definition of a menace to society.
Seeing as they had already dropped Johnny Depp, made the prudent decision of booting Ezra Miller from their role as Credence in the 3rd Fantastic Beasts film, if only to protect their company's image, and the world lived happily ever after. See, look at the trailer for The Secrets of Dumbledore, not an Ezra in sight. Oh, never mind.
What? They gave him a role for this shit regardless? Oh my god.
As it turns out, Warner Bros. Did nothing about Ezra Miller. They were not removed from Fantastic Beasts, nor the 2021 Justice League film. Nobody did anything about Ezra Miller.
Why? Like, who would you want? Who's gonna see this? Like, everyone hated this guy. If I remember correctly, people boycotted these movies at the time. So it's like, you're not gonna get sales, so you're basically just wasting money. So you keep, I don't even know. People's egos are crazy.
Miller, and as a result, the story only gets 10 times crazier from here on out. For whatever reason, Ezra had a relatively quiet 2021, or at least, it appeared that way on the surface. Truth was, the actor was staying busy, and we just didn't know it. News only started trickling out again once January 2022 rolled around, in which month the world was graced with one hell of a video by Ezra on their Instagram account.
Hi, this is Ezra Miller, aka the Bengal Ghouls, the Mad Goose Wizard, and this is a message for the Beulahville chapter of the North Carolina Ku Klux Klan. Hello, first of all.
Wait, what is he addressing the Ku Klux? Like, there's never a good reason to address the Ku Klux Klan.
How are y'all doing?
What? He just said, hey, how are y'all doing? What?
It's me. Look, if y'all want to, I suggest just kill yourselves with your own guns. Okay?
Oh, I mean, yeah, fuck them.
Otherwise, keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, and you know what I'm talking about. And then, you know, we'll do it for you if that's really what you want. Okay, talk to you soon, okay?
What?
Bye!
For whatever reason, Ezra thought it wise to send death threats to specifically the North Carolina KKK and told them to unalive themselves. Miller also referred to themselves as the Bengal Ghouls and the Mad Goose Wizard. I have no idea what the latter phrase is supposed to refer to, since these ramblings may just be nonsensical, but ghosts are indeed an important part of Bengali folklore, so that comment may have been spurred on by Ezra's esoteric spiritual studies. It's worth noting that his interest in mythology and even the occult had been manifesting in other ways, such as Miller's choice of symbolism and outfits. While we've come to expect this sort of thing in Hollywood, it seems Ezra's bizarre interest took quite a unique toll on the star. We were already seeing hints of it in Iceland, but according to some, Ezra would soon develop a full-blown messiah complex. Fast forward.
Man, celebrities, I mean, you have to really be humble to be a celebrity, otherwise you're just gonna end up looking like this guy who thinks he's Jesus fucking Christ.
Forward to March 2022, and Ezra is bar hopping again, this time in Hawaii. They're filmed having an altercation with police, but nothing comes of it. A few weeks later, Ezra gets another arrest to their name. Things had gone south in a bar. Police alleged that Miller grabbed a mic from a woman singing karaoke, lunged at a man playing darts, and yelled obscenities at patrons. Miller posted the $500 bail, or rather it was paid for them, by a couple they were staying with at a hostel. However, 2 days later, that same couple would file a restraining order against Ezra. This is because they allegedly stole the wife's passport and the husband's wallet and threatened the couple, saying, "I will bury you and your slut wife." What an absolute sick.
What a madman, dude. Like, why is he not in prison yet? That's the thing. Like, we don't need him in any movies that badly.
Just kidding. Teehee. Over the course of March, there had apparently been 10 police calls regarding Ezra, over small incidents such as filming people at a gas station and refusing to leave the sidewalk area of a restaurant. In April, Warner Bros. And DC executives finally called an emergency meeting to discuss the actor, seeing as the situation could no longer possibly be ignored, though they only saw fit to halt Miller's involvement in production rather than cut them loose altogether, which is quite an astounding decision.
It is an that blows my mind. Like, what value is there do you see? Because from my opinion, as just a regular dude, I just see you losing money.
Seeing as one source reported that they were even having meltdowns on set, and if it already seems like Ezra has a supernatural ability to avoid consequences for their actions, you ain't seen nothing yet. A little later in April, we were graced with a video of Ezra bussing it down dementedly at some.
If I saw this man in public, I would just absolutely wreck him.
Hawaiian club. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this was right before they would be arrested again, for allegedly throwing a chair at a woman at a party. This arrest was accompanied by some riveting body cam footage, where Ezra does everything from talking about NFTs to mumbling something about sacred religious material.
I'm assaulted in this bar twice in a row. I film myself when I get assaulted for NFT crypto art. What's your name? What's your badge number? Tell me your name and your badge number. What? The guy in that bar declared himself as a Nazi. I have it on film, and he attacked me.
Okay.
I claim my 9th Amendment rights to not be unlawfully persecuted for a crime of no designation, disorderly conduct being something I am unguilty of. I claim my 4th Amendment rights to not be searched and seized on no probable cause, that you will not be able to...
They're like, we don't give a fuck, dude. We're gonna do what we do because this is our job. Like, he really thinks he's like above the law.
Offer in a court of law. I claim my 4th Amendment rights to not be unlawful. Hey, you just touched my penis. Please don't do that. I'm not transgender, non-binary. I don't want to be searched by a man. I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man.
That's not how it works, man. You're gonna get searched by a man. Like, What, you want a girl to like touch you? That's so weird.
And I claim my Fourth Amendment rights. They're Nerf guns, just in case you worry that they're bullets. Those are Nerf bullets.
Thank you for letting me.
They are fake and they are a toy.
Thank you for letting me.
This is my belt buckle and my Nerf bullets.
I appreciate that.
Please don't take them from me.
I have nerve damage from police handcuffs.
But the intrigue doesn't end there. There's also a police radio recording regarding the incident where they discuss an interesting tip they got.
Getting another call from a female party on the line, just mentioned she wanted to give anonymous tip and started rambling on, mentioned there's a cult at an address of mentioned that he's impregnating people, do what you want with the info.
According to the call, Ezra was running a cult out of a house in Hawaii that had to do with them impregnating women. Interestingly enough, there was more to back up.
What's with all these like full arrow where they send their seed out to God and they, you know, attain glory? I don't know what that shit is about, dude. It's like such a narcissist ego trip. Ugh.
This unusual claim. As more information was being revealed about Ezra in light of all of this publicity, one woman came forward about the brief relationship she had with Miller back in Iceland in 2020, at which point she was 18. Besides allegedly psychologically abusing her, which we can't really corroborate, the actor became fixated on her breeding capabilities, she said, and worshipped her perfect womb by talking to it, looking at it, hugging it, and laying their head on her stomach.
What the fuck? Bro.
As far as the list of cult-like activities goes, impregnating a bunch of women at random is definitely up there. It's also worth mentioning that having children can be used as an abusive tactic to try and keep partners around who would otherwise end up leaving. In any case, Ezra was now having regularly scheduled scandals every month, with Twitter users keeping up and being thoroughly entertained. So that takes us to May 2022, when they would be accused of stealing music from a former collaborator, Oliver Ignatius. Ezra allegedly posted music the pair was working on together without permission or credit, after they had a falling out. But stealing music was child's play compared to the kind of allegations that were about to be brought against Ezra Miller. On June 7th, 2022, began the odyssey we started this video with, the story of Toccata Iron Eyes. On that fateful day, Chase Iron Eyes and Sarah Jumping Eagle, a Native American couple from North Dakota, requested a protection order to keep Ezra Miller away from their 18-year-old daughter, Toccata Iron Eyes, on the grounds that Ezra was allegedly grooming her. But what led up to this decision was a series of events that stretched back much farther than anyone would have thought, back to 2016, when Toccata was 12 years old.
Holy shit, bro. 12 fucking years old, dude. This is a celebrity that made millions of dollars and people saw no like problem hiring, and this guy is
That's when it all started, at least according to the family. Toccata's uncle, Chief Bearcross, gave their side of the story in a lengthy interview with Last Real Indians, a media company owned by Chase. In 2016, Ezra Miller encountered Toccata at the Dakota Access Pipeline protests, when Toccata was a mere 12 years old and Miller was 23. Iron Eyes met a multitude of celebrities in her time as a young environmental activist, but Toccata's parents are now claiming that this is when the grooming process began. 2 years later, at the age of 14, Miller invited a group of Native Americans to travel to London for a visit to the Fantastic Beasts set, with Toccata included. Now, while she was one among a group of individuals, seemingly implying Ezra had no relationship with her in particular, Miller did arrange for her to interview them and their band. As per the allegations in the court documents, while in London, Ezra tried to sleep in the same bed as a 14-year-old Toccata, but was stopped by a chaperone who demanded they find somewhere else to sleep. Toccata's parents did not know about this until the chaperone came forward as a witness. They also claimed that they
What? That is like, why would you hold that out on parents? Like, how long was this information kept from them?
recently discovered Ezra was secretly taking 14-year-old Toccata to bars. When Toccata was 16, Miller convinced her parents to let her attend Bard's College, about an hour-long drive from Ezra's farm in Vermont. Miller purportedly lied and acted like they would be paying Toccata's tuition through a charitable group, when in reality, the organization had nothing to do with them. Later on, Miller is alleged to have used this to make Toccata feel indebted to him. In 2021, Toccata secretly began traveling to Ezra's farm and consuming drugs, her parents say. Her grades began to slip until eventually she stopped attending school in December 2021, the same month that Ezra returned to Vermont. Around 2 a.m. on December 31st, Toccata called Chief Bearcross and asked him if the two could stay at his house for the night. They were accompanied by one of Ezra's associates, Whitney Sutters, whose relevance we'll get to later. According to Chief Bearcross, Ezra had an ugly, snotty attitude, and they repeated, "I'm Ezra Miller, I'm an actor, I play the Flash." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." Wasn't really interested in it. Ezra didn't like that. Ezra's eyes were bloodshot red, and they were paranoid, saying the FBI is everywhere. I asked Ezra, "Are you on drugs? Are you on alcohol? What are you doing? Why are your eyes so red?" Ezra said to me, "Well, I smoke cannabis with a little bit of ketamine." According
What the fuck with ketamine? Are
to
you
them,
kidding?
Tokata had also told her parents that Miller was frequently using ketamine, a party drug with hallucinogenic effects that last a relatively brief 30 to 60 minutes. Because of its capability to produce sedation and amnesia, it's been associated with sexual assault crimes as well. While posing for
Oh my god, so he was not only he was using that to like basically rape that chick and shit?
a photo with Takata, Chief, and his kids, Ezra had something else in mind, Chief said. "We were posing for a photo, and after we took the photo with my family, we decided to get one with just me and Ezra. Well, Ezra just opened their big old jacket and pulled out the .40 caliber firearm. I asked if it was real, and Ezra said yes." On the topic of Ezra and Takata's relationship, Chief continued, "I know for a fact when Ezra stayed here in my home, Ezra had Takata wrapped around so tight she barely went outside. Ezra Miller was right there beside her. Ezra jumped up real quick outside, like, who's she talking to? Who's she with?" There was even a point in time when we were doing the ceremony over in Pine Ridge, and my wife was outside loading up the altar after the ceremony, and Takata and Ezra were having sex on a bed that was laying outside. I did not
Dude, this is a fucking child, bro.
know any of that happened until way later when my wife told me. Ezra is so possessive of Takata. Ezra has her wrapped around so bad she devoted her life to Ezra, you can see it. I think part of that is the drugs. On New Year's Day, Chase Iron Eyes was joined by Ezra Miller and Takata for an outing. The group included two others, Stella Marbles and Mia Solange. At a park, Ezra reportedly kept insisting to Chase that they were the second coming of Jesus, and then whipped out a firearm. 4 months later, in April 2022, during the Hawaii saga, that same Mia Solange would expose Ezra for purportedly being physically and emotionally abusive, including pictures of Miller as proof of their relationship, and a photo showing bruises on her leg, which were allegedly inflicted by Ezra. As for their relationship, Mia had the following to say, "This MF is off their fucking rocker. I remember they flew me from Hawaii to Oklahoma to work on a movie with them, and my flight was canceled or something, and they literally cussed out the person who was trying to help me fix my flight. I was like, yo, it's literally okay." After the two had stopped speaking for a few months, Ezra hit up Mia again out of nowhere. One day in like February, Ezra called me saying they wanted me to go to England with them and work with them in Europe and live with them, etc. They wanted me to have their babies and get married. So more pregnancy talk. Regarding their FaceTime interactions, Solange noted, "They always do like a long fucking gaze and have asked me to strip on camera before. Otherwise, they'll bring up random stuff that I'll have no idea what they're talking about." Solange also posted a TikTok about Ezra, captioned, "You took everything from me. Ezra Miller is not a good human, and I can finally say so without being terrified."
You know, he is never, I don't think he ever was, damn.
Hashtag abuser. But back to Takata. On January 25th, 2022 in Brooklyn, New York, Ezra allegedly gave her LSD, which put her into an incoherent state, at which point she was taken back to Ezra's farm. On January 27th, as Takata's mental health started breaking down, Ezra was having an episode of their own, and this was when we got the Instagram video of Miller threatening the Klan. During this time, Ezra supposedly sent weaponry from Vermont to North Carolina, expecting a violent encounter to transpire. According to the family, Ezra pressured Takata to participate in the confrontation, which built up her feelings of anxiety and fear, so much so that Ezra had to call her parents 2 days later to pick her up because they couldn't handle the situation. During this time, she cut her hair and reportedly didn't sleep or eat for several days. When Sarah and Chase came to get her, she didn't have her phone, car keys, or any ID. Takata's parents said they noticed bruises on her arms, legs, and face, which they included a picture of. A witness testified that Ezra had inflicted these bruises, having pinned her down when she wouldn't answer one of the questions, at which point the witness said they had to intervene. According to her parents, Takata relayed the same story to them, though with an extra detail. Ezra told Takata that they had been sexually assaulted at 14, and so Takata implied that Ezra was playing out their own trauma on others. The article also mentions a voodoo priest associate of Ezra's that had a large effect on Takata, and while I'm not sure what that means, it certainly sounds on brand. After a few weeks, Takata made off again with Ezra after supposedly lying to her parents about her whereabouts, flying to New York to be picked up. The pair was spotted together in Los Angeles in February and made it to Hawaii in March for Miller's crime spree. 1 month later, in April 2022, Chase obtained and tried to serve orders for a substance abuse evaluation and temporary guardianship, at which point the couple fled from Vermont and then back to LA. In May, the following alleged incident transpired. Takata's parents found her approximate location in the Los Angeles area after being informed that she was walking around like a zombie with a bruise on her eye socket without access to her phone, and that Ezra was not allowing her to eat. Takata's friend also described having to ask Ezra's permission for Takata to go out to dinner.
Where's like those people surrounding this person that like is trying to put him in jail? Like, why has this not happened yet?
Chase and Sarah knocked on the door of the residence
It's
where
not even like nobody's even played with the idea even.
Takata was reportedly staying. A young person named Rosie answered, and when asked if Takata was present, Rosie paused and looked to Ezra for an appropriate response. After approximately 15 minutes of discussion, during which Takata consumed cannabis, tried to hide empty alcohol containers, and ranted about the KKK, police, pedophiles, and other conspiracies, Takata, Ezra, and Rosie fled from the residence. Sarah began following them, at which point Ezra whispered to Takata, and they began running away from her. Takata then pulled out a knife, threatening her mother. Sarah continued following, and as Sarah and Rosie hopped into an Uber, Sarah reached inside for Takata, attempting to talk to her, when Ezra slammed the car door on her arm several times, injuring her. They included photos of said injury, a bruise on Sarah's left arm. After the family's relationship with Ezra went sour, Chief Bearcross reportedly had his own negative interactions with Miller. Every time we said, "Hello, how are you?" Ezra would respond with weird messages, saying stuff like, "The tree spoke to me, the bark fell off. You'll find the path with the tree bark." A little while later, Ezra messaged me saying, "I knew you were a fake man. You're no chief, you're a bad man." Out of nowhere, Ezra started saying crazy crap. Chief said, "Ezra called my little kids bastards and my wife a sleepy whore," even after the hospitality we gave Ezra in our own home. After all of this, Takata's parents' last recourse was filing a protection order, which brings us back to June of 2022. As you can imagine, once they went public with their story, and it started exploding in popularity online, on June 9th, Takata responded to the allegations on her Instagram account. "I'd like to make a statement to acknowledge the tragedy that is the narrative of the general public and the assumptions made on my behalf by my family and friends regarding my stability. I am in no way in need of a conservatorship. My father and his allegations hold no weight and are frankly transphobic and based on the notion that I am somehow incapable of coherent thought or opposing opinions to those of my own kindred worrying about my well-being. I am now aware of the severity of emotional and psychological manipulation I was made to endure while in my parents' home. I am an adult and I deserve to feel authority in my own body. I am tired of wondering whether or not cops will show up to section me on a daily basis." She didn't comment on any of these specific concerns raised, and instead turned the tables against her parents, calling them transphobic, whereas they said they accept her non-binary identity and
What? It seems like your parents are trying to do nothing but get you out of a situation that seems hopeless.
she/they pronouns, and have other children who identify the same way. Takata would follow up her statement with a video, since many people were claiming that Ezra had written it for her.
I've become aware that some people are saying that my statements were not written by me. I'd like to clarify that they are, in fact, directly from me. Nobody is controlling my Instagram account. I don't have a phone right now out of my own personal conviction.
Again, she mostly just stated that her parents and the public should stay out of her business, and that whatever was going on in her life was her choice. Before Chase and Sarah could serve Takata and Miller the order and take the case to court, they disappeared again. By June 15th, Ezra had deleted their Instagram, but not before dropping some images on their story, seemingly teasing the authorities about being in another dimension. Ezra also posted something you'd only expect to see on a 14-year-old girl's account. "I am shielded from negative people and their ill intent. I am protected from all negative energy people attempt to throw at me. Subconsciously and consciously, I clear any and all hidden peers who are hidden enemies." In Ezra's eyes,
Dude, are you that unhinged where you think the whole world's against you? It's like, how many people have to be having a problem with you until the problem is you and not them? It's always that case. It's always a classic case of that with every person I see that's unhinged. It's always them thinking it's the world and nothing that they do contributes to that.
everyone was just plotting on their downfall for no reason, I guess. But they wouldn't be able to escape consequences forever. In fact, the very next day, Miller was accused of grooming another 12-year-old, whose mother obtained a protection order against Miller. An investigation—
Dude, where are the police? Like, I swear they don't take pedophiles seriously at all. And when they do arrest them, it's like, oh, slap on the wrist, go back out, do your thing.
By the Daily Beast, with court documents, text messages, and photographs, detailed a slew of strange interactions Ezra purportedly had with this child. The first took place on the evening of February 2nd, 2022, when the mother, child, and a friend were at a neighbor's home. Miller was wearing a bulletproof vest, and I had no idea until later that they were armed, recalls a visiting neighbor. Tensions began brewing when the mother says she mentioned doing some traveling recently with her tribe of people, leading Miller to snap at her and accuse her of cultural appropriation.
Are you kidding me? Like, a tribe is not a tribe can mean anything. What?
Then, a conversation about board games allegedly went sideways when, after Miller claims that the board game Parcheesi had Rastafarian roots, the visiting neighbor, who's half black, questioned Miller as to which sect of the Rastafari movement it originated from. At this point, Ezra explodes and started screaming directly into my face. They said, "You don't even know what the f you're talking about. What did you say to me? What did you just say to me?" Then they opened up their jacket. They had this, like, big Sherpa jacket, and they opened up one side of their jacket. You could see a gun, and they said, "Talking like that could get you into a really serious situation." Next, according to the visiting neighbor, the mother, and the child, Miller focused their attention on the then 11-year-old, saying, "I've talked extensively with your child and they have a lot of power to them. At one point, you're going to realize that you don't have any control over them anymore. They're an elevated being, and they would be lucky to have someone like me guide them." They say,
Dude, he really did run a cult of children that, like, worshipped him.
Miller proceeded to turn to their mother, who dresses goth, and accused her of being a witch and a vampire, repeatedly yelling at her, "Do you want to drink my blood? Do you?" Miller then came back to the child and allegedly began pestering them with compliments, at one point moving their chair closer to them, requesting that they add the actor on Instagram, and telling the child to pursue fashion. They automatically were just weirdly drawn to me and kept talking about how they love my outfit and love my style, and kept going on and on about how it was great, the child remembers. It was really uncomfortable. I was really nervous. I was scared to be around them after they yelled at my mother and she was crying. The mother and visiting neighbor both believe that Ezra may have been under the influence due to their dilated pupils and erratic behavior. Miller apologized for the outbursts, only to pester the family on a number of other occasions, including in late April, in May, and on June 4th, dressed as a cowboy. In April, both the mother and child maintain that Miller made the child uncomfortable by hugging them and pressing their body closely against them. During the June...
Dude, why would you let your child hug this man? This man should not be anywhere near children. And that's like the going theme here. Like I'm repeating whatever.
Visit, the child expressed their interest in horses, and Miller said that they would acquire several horses so that the child could help them care for their herd on the Vermont farm, which also struck them as inappropriate. This kind of fixation on a child so young would definitely be disturbing if true, and it's nothing short of cult-like to try and put a child in your care by telling the mother that you are an elevated being, and insinuated that you'll be a spiritual guide for their kid. These allegations point to Ezra no longer wanting to be spiritually advised, but instead becoming the spiritual advisor themselves. And of course, the other elements of this story are in keeping with Miller's generally incomprehensible, erratic, and angry behavior. Ezra's whirlwind of a month wasn't over yet, though. A week later, Rolling Stone got in on the action and released an investigation of their own into Miller about another precarious situation involving young children. Ezra Miller has been hosting a 25-year-old mother and her 3 young children at their Vermont farm. 2 sources with knowledge of the situation expressed concern to Rolling Stone that it's an unsafe...
Dude, I really blame the mother in that situation, because what the fuck are you doing bringing your children to this guy? Like, everyone knows at this point. I feel like I even heard whispers, and this is my first time hearing about this.
Environment for children, alleging there are unattended guns strewn around the house on Miller's 96-acre property. One source recalled an instance where one of the children, a 1-year-old, allegedly picked up a loose bullet and put it in her mouth, but the mother claims that Miller had helped her escape from a violent and abusive ex, and Miller helped me finally have a safe environment.
So you're gonna jump from one abusive ex to another abusive ex, and oh, on top of that, he's a pedophile. Fuck it.
For my 3 very young children. They may have firearms for self-defense purposes, and they are stored in a part of the house that the children never go in. My kids are able to relax more in their healing because of the safety and nurturing Ezra has provided for them. Apparently, this living situation was arranged behind the father's back in March when Ezra was in Hawaii. With the arrests and whatnot, I don't know how they found the time, but I digress. The 2 sources describe it as a chaotic environment that is unsafe for children. Video footage from April reviewed by Rolling Stone appears to show at least 8 assault weapons, rifles, and handguns laying around the living room, with some weapons propped up next to a pile of stuffed animals. The 2 sources also allege that there has been frequent and heavy marijuana use in front of the children, with little concern about proper ventilation. And on that same topic, that brings us to Whitney Sutters. There is a sizable cannabis farm on Miller's property, with Miller's close friend, Whitney Sutters, claiming on social media that the 2 were running a cannabis company called Rebel Alliance. Numerous photos posted to Sutters' social media pages indicate there is a far greater number of plants than Vermont's permitted 2 mature plants or 4 immature plants that private citizens can own. Now, other than tending...
This man needs to go to prison ASAP, not for this, but just, like, maybe use this as an excuse, but this guy needs to go. if he's not already.
To the garden, if you will, Whitney was also defending Ezra on social media in now deleted Instagram posts. One was from when Ezra disappeared, imploring Flash fans not to trust the media as if it was all a conspiracy to tarnish Ezra's name. He also claimed that Ezra wasn't on the run, just on lockdown because of death threats. The other posts he made were aimed at discrediting the mother of the non-binary 12-year-old, revealing her child's name out in the open. These responses from Sutters serve as an example of why so many of Ezra's accusers have chosen to remain anonymous. In light of these grooming allegations, people would dig up info about a concert Ezra's band did in 2018, which was intended for minors. The Comic-Con-inspired poster for the genre-queer indie rock band Sons of an Illustrious Father includes the phrases "revenge," "youth to the front," and "moving slowly beyond ageism." The show was for audiences 20 and under, and anyone 21 or older must be accompanied by a minor. An innocent gimmick otherwise.
What the fuck kind and like what kind of like venue is allowing this like kind of rule? Like as a venue you've got to be responsible, I feel like, to a certain degree, because you're allowing this sort of thing to go on. Like you're literally putting children in danger. You're giving the environment for it.
But perhaps disturbing in retrospect. One more story would come out during June. A woman named Nadia came forward to talk to Variety about alleged experiences she had with Ezra in Germany. The actor came to her apartment in Berlin one late evening in February 2022 at her invitation. After a friendly interaction, Miller's mood sharply turned when she told them that they couldn't smoke inside her home. They started with, "I'm a maker of planets, tobacco is sacred." Miller continued on a tirade, she said, that they could do whatever they want, whenever they want, basically. When Nadia stood up to insist that guests should honor their host's house rules, they looked at me with this really mean, stern face and told me, "Sit down," like they were ordering a dog. Nadia told Miller as much. Their reply, she said, was, "Yes, I'm talking to you like a dog." I said, "Okay, if you talk to me like this, it's time for you to go," she said, but Miller didn't. Instead, they escalated, accusing Nadia of being transphobic and—
What? Anyone that doesn't like me is transphobic and a Nazi. God, aren't conservatives like defending Ezra Miller? So then they're like, he's like the boogeyman that conservatives like cry at night about.
and a Nazi. I asked them if they remember I told them I'm a descendant of Holocaust survivors, so why would they say that to me, she said. Ezra answered, screaming at me, "Yes, but how many people in my family died?" Miller entered Nadia's bedroom, and when she told them to leave, they started to shout that they were a survivor and I was triggering them, she said. They started to say I had assaulted them, I had beat them up, I had hurt them. Yet another alleged instance of Ezra going on political and spiritual tirades out of the blue, calling other people bigoted, while they themselves are enlightened and sacred. Nadia's relationship with Ezra dated back to 2020, and she was around to see their response to the choking video going public. Ezra was in Iceland in a car with a friend, Nadia said. I could hear the friend, or maybe friends, I don't know, laughing, and Ezra was in a very good mood. Ezra was like, "Don't worry, it's just a misunderstanding. It's nothing. Nothing happened." This was an interesting peek into Ezra's perspective on their own actions, which we otherwise don't get much insight into, since they repeatedly passed up the opportunity to explain themselves. No new information was presented in July. However, there was a video of Ezra having an absolutely chaotic encounter with a fan.
I present people always. Hi. And always just knock you out, and then you won't have to panic. Right. You just gotta knock you just let me know. Yeah. No? Yes? What?
Now, after somehow avoiding proper legal trouble through all of these shenanigans, Ezra was charged.
How is this guy not? Yeah. He's finally getting charged?
In August with felony burglary
but
for
he
stealing.
wasn't getting charged for threatening someone on video? Like, how does that work, man?
Alcohol from a neighbor's residence. Shortly after this, with not only the media, but the police now closing in, and with public outcry growing louder by the day, Miller finally broke their silence and issued an apology. Having recently gone through a time of crisis, I now understand that I'm suffering complex mental health issues and have begun ongoing treatments. I want to apologize to everyone that I have alarmed and upset with my past behavior. I am committed to doing the necessary work to get back to a healthy, safe, and productive stage in my life. Yes, that's really it unless you're expecting more. The paparazzi obviously wasn't too satisfied with this answer and continued following Ezra around.
Little hi, how are you doing?
Well,
Yeah?
how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome to LA.
Thanks, dude.
How are you feeling? Do you feel relieved to be avoiding jail?
In August, further development ensued in the story about the mother and her 3 children who were staying at the farm in Vermont, as reported by Rolling Stone. The police agreed that it was an unsafe environment, but were unsuccessful in their attempt to remove them from the premises. Over the weekend, Vermont State Police repeatedly attempted to serve their mother an emergency care order that demanded the child's removal from her care and the home over fear for their safety, but Miller claims the family hadn't lived there in months, which the Vermont State's Attorney's Office said seemed like an attempt to evade service of the order. The mother had been posting to social media from inside the residence until late July, indicating she was there far more recently than Ezra was letting on. Next month, in September, an expansive article by Vanity Fair would be released, tying together these sprawling allegations into a more cohesive narrative about what was going on inside Ezra's head. Over the last 6 weeks, VF has spoken to more than a dozen people who crossed paths with Miller in recent years. They say the actor verbally and emotionally abused those around him and referred to themselves alternately as Jesus and the devil. 3 people say Miller has also wrapped the superhero they play into their grandiose speechifying. The actor, says one source, was claiming that the Flash is the one who brings the multiverses together just like Jesus. This investigation also shed some more light on the role of Ezra's spiritual cohorts in contributing to their budding Messiah delusion.
This dude really compared the Flash to Jesus Christ, and that he is both.
Mentioning Jasper Young Bear in particular, Young Bear seems to have stoked Miller's outsized vision of himself. Jasper was telling Ezra that he wasn't a part of the movement, he was the movement, and that the Freemasons were sending demons out to kill him, says a source, who, like others who have been close to Miller, sometimes misgenders the actor, who is said not to insist on they-them pronouns in private. Ezra was also purportedly performing chaos magic on the farm, meaning that they were actually involved in what could be termed as occult activities, and this played into cult-like procedures that they allegedly subjected others to. The house in Vermont contains an altar that's home to bullets, weed, sage, and Flash figurines, according to 2 people who visited this year.
And Flash figurines, that's so unhinged, man. Like, what is this guy on?
A lot of times he makes the women put their cell phones on the altar when they come in and other offerings, says a longtime friend. Ezra freaked out recently, demanding that Susan Sarandon come pay tribute to his altar because she didn't invite Ezra to a dinner party. Insiders also commented on Ezra's polycule, which, according to them, was actually not the free-spirited egalitarian commune Miller would have people believe. It was really just a supply of young, impressionable women to be preyed on. According to 3 people in Miller's circle, the polycule is less a democratic society than an ever-shifting court harem of mostly young women. Miller's situation, in their opinion, is actually a patriarchal dictatorship where Ezra controls all the sex as the man and plays the women against each other, screams at them, and belittles them in front of others.
Yeah, he's so against the patriarchy, man. Down with the patriarchy.
Relationship with Takata was also allegedly imbued with Ezra's unusual brand of mysticism. Ezra is Jesus, and Tokata's an apocalyptic Native American spider goddess, and their union is supposed to bring about the apocalypse, recaps one person, and that's the real reason everyone is so opposed to them being together. Iron Eyes' mother, Jumping Eagle, has heard Miller's story too. They say they are some kind of messiah, and they're going to lead an indigenous revolution. The actor, despite being fixated on native cultures, does not strike everyone as respectful. He professes that he walks through this world with an indigenous humility and spiritual awareness, says one indigenous insider, but point of fact, he doesn't at all, because he doesn't care. Miller's focus on social justice was being taken to task, and even their very identity was too. A queer associate of Miller's says, "To me, those are clear instances of manipulation, where it's like, are you really queer? Or is that just a fun way to marginalize yourself so you can be even worse to others?" The Vanity Fair piece also touched on Ezra's apparent gun obsession, what with keeping a large supply of pistols and rifles on hand to whip out at random in front of unsuspecting people, and other witnesses claimed that Ezra expressed they'd endured traumatic and weird experiences in Hollywood. Many child actors and actresses unfortunately experienced the same thing. It's an incredibly tragic and disturbing state of affairs. The article finishes off by commenting on Ezra's conspicuous aptitude for getting accusers to drop charges, claiming this was achieved by paying them off. That would certainly explain a lot. While that was a lot to cover, I've left the most glaringly obvious question unanswered. That is, what was Warner Brothers' response to all of this? Because unfortunately for them, they had a Flash movie coming out in June 2023, meaning Ezra would basically be in every single scene. Surely they would have to scrap the project, right? How could they go forward? We've already gone over Johnny Depp in this video, and there's plenty of other cases of allegations that have yet to be proven in court being enough to cut someone loose. And yet, Ezra doesn't play by the same rules as everyone else. They have a supernatural ability to just get get away with it. In a statement by Peter Safran of DC Studios, dated January this year, he said, "Ezra is completely committed to their recovery. We are fully supportive of that journey they are on right now. When the time is right, when they are ready to have that discussion, we will all figure out what's the best path forward. But right now, they are completely focused on their recovery, and in conversation with them in the last couple of months, it feels like they are making enormous progress." As of right now, The Flash is still set to release in June. In fact, they're still shooting scenes with Ezra, even after they pled guilty in January of this year to a trespassing charge. But hey, who am I to say how Warner Brothers and DC should run their companies, and maybe Miller truly is on the road to recovery. But that doesn't sound like justice. For the gravity of the situation, it feels like sweeping everything under the rug and pretending that nothing even happened. Oh well. I've been Turkey Tom.
Is he not in prison? Who gives a crap about him seeking recovery? What about the justice for all of the people he hurt? Like all of the lives he's ruined? All of the relationships he's destroyed between people? Like, and they're still deciding to put him in a movie that's coming out this year? This is so ridiculous. What kind of society do we live in where this is okay? We can just sweep things under the rug, and then as long as we make money. That's so ridiculous. I hope nobody watches that movie. I don't care if it's the best movie in the world. I really hope nobody watches it. And I hope something he does gets him caught up. Maybe something old, maybe something new. I hope he gets caught up and goes to jail, man. But anyways, rant over. I hope y'all have a good rest of your day, and give me a like and subscribe. Peace.